can't feel my face. Coffee spilling all over the place. Forgot the sticks, we're turning around. Another weekend in some hockey town. With a popped up parents, frozen toes, big hearts, bad luck. With a popped up parents, one more tourney, one more puck. We're broke, we're loud, we love this grind. Cause our kid just scored and we lost our minds.
Hello and welcome to Pucked Up Parents. We are at episode 10. I am Michael, your gracious host. With me, as always, is my lovely wife who just celebrated another birthday, Angela. How you doing, Angela?
Let's not think about that birthday, okay? Welcome to Pucked Up Parents. We are novice first generation hockey parents in a non traditional hockey town, telling you all about what we've learned over the last 12 years as first time hockey parents.
We've been in the game for 12 years and still not a weekend goes by that I don't learn something new even 12 years later. We're currently in Northern Kentucky, which is under about a foot of snow right now. So, Angela, let's talk about our hockey weekend. What observations did you have?
First and foremost, we had canceled hockey games, which is highly unusual, but with a foot of snow hitting the ground Sunday afternoon, all of the games on Sunday were canceled. Rinks were closed. A very unusual situation for hockey rinks.
That is true. We did get some games in on Saturday. We'll go into more detail on that because I know you have observations about that. But our Sunday varsity games for our 17-year-old were canceled, and we did have a tournament with our 12U that was canceled outright. And a team showed up to play the 12Us Sunday. And Angela, do you want to get in that observation um, about what went on at the 12U game? How we messed up? We messed up. I messed up. He messed up.
Okay, it was a what do we call this? A cascade of errors, I guess. So I left the house with the 12U to go to the game. I go to get in the vehicle and remind him, "Hey, bud, make sure you grab your equipment and throw it in the car." I neglected to say, "Grab your jerseys."
I stayed behind. I had to do a little repair work on the garage, so it is a 30-minute drive to the 12U's rink, so it's not like it's down the street. They left, and I get a text from Angela saying, "Hey, can you grab his jersey?" So I'm like, "Sure." So the first thing I do is I walk to the garage, I grab the old, what is it called?
Garment bag.
Garment bag for our 12U, and I toss it in the car, head that way. Angela, do you wanna continue the story of when I showed up?
You got to the rink and Henry was already standing by me in the lobby, half dressed and almost in tears because he was so upset with himself that he forgot his jerseys. And so Michael came in with the garment bag. We unzipped the garment bag, and lo and behold, the varsity 17-year-old jerseys were in the garment bag.
In the
Wrong
garment bag
team, wrong size.
In the garment bag for the 12U, mind you. I don't know how that wound up happening. I guess he borrowed it. I don't know what happened, but I clearly didn't listen to episode 8 of Pucked Up Parents, which is forgotten equipment. So when we got home later that evening, I talked to the 12U. I'm like, all right, whose fault is this? He goes, well, it's my fault for forgetting it. It's your fault for grabbing the wrong ones. And it's the varsity kid's fault for not cleaning out the garment bag. So the only one that whose fault it wasn't was kind of yours, but I'll also point the finger at you for not making sure that he had everything.
That's true. So blame all the way around on that one. And if you haven't listened to, what was that, episode 8 about broken and forgotten gear, here we are with a perfect example.
Yep, clearly listen to it and then maybe listen to it again, and then maybe listen to it again before you leave out for that weekend game that's 30 minutes away. So, last episode, not episode 8, let's recap what we talked about there quickly.
Well, so we talked about how to stay warm, which turned out to be great timing, at least in our region, with this massive snowstorm and super cold weather. And if anybody's listening from some of our northern states or Canada or somewhere else, you may laugh at our foot of snow and single digit temperatures, but that's pretty unusual for us. The city did shut down, including the rinks.
And I did hit up social media to check out everybody else's hacks and tricks for keeping warm, and they were very comparable to what we suggested in the last episode. So that was really good. There was nothing really outstanding there that stood out that was like, oh, yeah, that's something different. I'll point out one guy. I can't remember his name, but he said that his rink is so cold. What they do when it's 30 below outside to save money on the compressor, they'll just throw open the doors to the rink and let the nature cool down the ice. The ice is essentially subject to Mother Nature's whims in 30 below. He said it's miserable, but it must save him a ton of money on that compressor operation.
I bet, which reminds me of another type of rink, and we'll have to get into this in another episode, but I call them the carport rinks. So essentially, it's an ice rink that has a roof and maybe some walls. I've seen one with some kind of temporary walls around like two sides of it or something, and another one that had those long plastic sheets like you see at the grocery store that covers the cold area. We were at a rink like that. It's sort of like an indoor outdoor rink.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's interesting.
So the hybrid rink, I mean, essentially you're just throwing everything open to the elements, which this guy, I think he was in Wisconsin, which makes sense when you think
Right.
30 below, but kudos to the rink for saving money on throwing the doors open, but unkudos to the rink for throwing the doors open. So l-
Yeah.
let's get into today's topic. What do you have for us today?
So today I want to talk about the USA hockey levels. There are always questions about what level should my kid play at? How do you determine what level your kid plays? Where should we try out? All of those things. We've talked that we're going to do an episode on tryouts because that's coming up soon. Believe it or not, we are close to the end of January, but tryouts are going to come up soon. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about USA hockey levels and how those are set up and how they're different and just kind of get into some more nuts and bolts of that. I'm going to skip the high school stuff and junior stuff for today. I think that'll be another episode in itself, but want to dive into the USA hockey classifications that are based on birth year.
Okay, so what the puck am I doing? So this was and still is a huge learning curve for me personally. I still couldn't tell you the levels. If I was stuck in a cave and you said name all the levels to get me out of that cave, I couldn't do it. So yes, let's talk about that. Where do you want to start with the USA hockey classifications?
Like I mentioned, everything in USA hockey is based on birth year. So no matter if you were a winter baby born in January, like I was, or you're a December 31st, it's all based on your birth year. So for example, our kids are a 2008 birth year and we have a 2014 birth year. So if you hear hockey parents say things like, I have an '08 or I have a 2014, they're telling you what division their kid is playing in.
Huge learning curve for me for that. So when we started out and people were doing that, saying, "Oh, you have a 2008, you have a 2008," it drove me crazy because I'm just like, "Can we just say he's 6 years old?" This reminds me of when parents of toddlers will say, "I have a he's a 36-month-old." No, he's 3. Just say he's 3. So when somebody said, "Oh, you have a 2008," he's 6. Can we just say he's 6? But I get it. Now that I've been into the hockey, the USA hockey, I understand the birth years now, I get it. But back when we started, it was me going, "Why? Why do you care what year my kid was born? Let's just say his age outright."
I'm going to get into a little bit more of why that's important here in a second. So, USA Hockey uses kind of a 2 year age band for all of the different levels. For example, we talk a lot about our U12. So, our U12s this season are all born in 2013 and 2014. That's the 2 year age band for the U12 group for this season, which is the 2025-2026 hockey season.
Okay, so and I've got your list. Do you want me to go through the list of all the age groups quickly just to kinda lay them out there?
Well, let's go ahead and go through those age groups and also note that there's the traditional group names and then the U12, U10, U8. That's I think becoming more and more prominent. I'm not hearing these other traditional group names like the mites and squirts and whatnot as much as I did when we first started out in youth hockey.
Right, and so if you're not a moron like I am, understand that when Angela quotes the years here, that they're rolling years. So next year, obviously the year will move up. So get your number 2 pencil out, get your piece of paper out. There will be a quiz later. Angela, take us away on the levels. Go.
Okay, so all of this is also on the USA Hockey website, but just to run through it real quick, so U6 is under age 6, so that's mini mites and kids that are born in 2019 or younger. So anybody in 2020, even 2021, 2022, all of those little cute guys we talked about, I think, in the first couple of episodes.
All right, and we're at half ice at that age.
Yes, and then right, and half ice again, typically U8s, which are mites, so for this season are 2018 and 2017 birth years.
Right, okay.
And then we have U10, which has been historically called the Squirts, which is 2016 and 2015 birth years for this hockey season.
And I'll point out
You
that the Squirts is a terrible name. I don't know why they did that. I giggled like a schoolboy when they first said, "Your son's a squirt." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I guess he was." That's how we had a kid. Continue.
Oh, jeez. I don't know where these names originated. I didn't get that deep into the history on these, but I know these are a little bit more traditional. So then
It sounds like a drunk hockey parent saying, "Yeah, they're squirts, little squirts, put it down." He
could
next
be,
one
who knows?
and the next one's even worse. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the next one is U12 or PeeWee. So for this hockey season, that's kids born 2014 and 2013, which fun fact, I think the Mighty Ducks were considered PeeWee age hockey. If there were some I
Uh,
guess
the
some
district
quotes in that movie and in that little TV series that came out not too long ago that those were PeeWee age kids.
Alright, that was my knowledge of hockey before we had, kids that played hockey was, Mighty Ducks. Also, Pee-wee. Pee-wee's, Big Adventure, great movie. Another '80s reference, go see it. No
Right,
ho
and this is
no
the
hockey
second.
relations there, but it's a great movie.
Right, but I think this is the second time you've, referenced the Pee-wee movie in this
Great.
podcast, so,
Okay.
just to point that out. So then we have the U14s, which are 2011 and 2012 birth years for the season, and then we get into U16 and U18.
I'm sorry, for the
Yes.
U14 Bantam,
Oh, yeah,
that
Bantam, I didn't.
yeah, you didn't mention U14 Bantam.
Yeah.
That's when they can hit? Is that when they hit?
Yes, so that's when checking is allowed.
Okay, so that's where we're checking. Alright.
So checking is not allowed until you get to U14. And I know for the leagues that we've played in, the kids have to do a special practice to learn checking rules and how to's.
Okay, continue. And so now you're into the midget minors, which I'm not familiar with this at all, despite us having a 17-year-old, but I guess that's where we go into high school hockey that's different from this.
Right. So I'm not going to talk about high school hockey. If you remember a couple of years ago, our oldest did play U16. U16 is still considered youth hockey. U18, some of it is still considered youth hockey. Again, we'll talk about high school and junior stuff another time, but U16 for this um, hockey season is 2009, 2010 birth years. And then U18, which is the midget, it's MIDGET major, is 2007 and 2008 birth
Couldn't
years.
come up with a, creative name like Bantam, Pee-wee, or Squirt for those age groups. It's just generically midget minors. That's kind of crappy. Why not be like
Right.
uh, the prepubescent or the puberties?
I don't know, but I honestly, even when our son was playing U16, I didn't hear that kind of traditional group name as much as I did when they were younger, especially in the Mite Squirt Peewee age group.
So I know you said when you get to this age group, you're kind of branching off to wherever your kid lays midget minor. I'm trying to say it right, or high school, or even juniors. You're kind of in that 3 category of where your kid lands, depends on where you live and your kid's skill level, I assume, right?
Right, and so that's something that I don't wanna dive into a lot of that today. I just kinda wanna get through these, basic, levels or age groups on USA Hockey because when you do break out into high school, things get a little different, and then juniors is a whole 'nother topic that we'll have to talk about. But when you get to that U14, U16 age group is where you see kids breaking off into either a high school program or they'll stick with the youth programs, or some of the kids, especially when you get to the U18 age group, are looking at the juniors programs.
Okay, duly noted. All right, and then I see you have a note here about the girls kind of different a little bit, just girls only?
Yeah, so girls are a little bit different. And again, I know we've talked about this. We're going to get a friend of the show to come on and do an interview with that knows a lot more about girls hockey than we do. But I will say that most of the time, at least our experience has been that the girls will play on the boys' team. So it ends up being kind of a co ed team through usually about U14, so that Bantam age group. And then they break off and typically go to an all girls team. The all girls teams do, I think it's a 10U, 12U, 14U, 16U, and then instead of 18U, they have a 19U age division for the girls, which would include the '07, '08, and '06 birth years for the girls. So that's a little bit different. Again, another topic that I do want to take a deeper dive into on another day.
Okay, so a lot of levels. It was a fire hose of information, and pretty much we covered everything from the start of your kid till your kid probably should be moving out of the house and living on their own at this time. So that was a lot. Rewind it, listen to it again if you have any questions, and of course, if you have further questions, feel free to hit us up on social media. Now, I know we dealt with this a lot more with our oldest child, not so much with the younger child, but the mixed birth year team. Explain that to our listeners what a mixed birth year team consists of, and in our opinion, how it's kind of negative.
I think it's gonna depend on where you are and kind of what level your child's playing at and the different teams that are available, but a mixed birth year team is, say, again, I'm gonna go back to the U12, the PeeWee group, because, that's what we're dealing with a lot. A mixed birth year team would be a group of kids that are on a team. Some of them are 2013, and some of them are birth year 2014. So they're kind of mixed up. You've got a couple of different age groups there. One of the, I guess, negatives that we found with that is if you've got a mixed birth year team, the next year, all of those kids who were in the kind of older age group. So for our situation, anybody who was a 2013, suddenly they're moving up to that next U14 level. And then you've got the group of 2014s that is now suddenly going to have to play with 2015s because of that mixed group.
Right. So essentially, and we've kind of settled in where you said that was 2014. That was actually our 2008 kid that did that. Our 2014 kid more or less got on a team that's strictly 2014. So each year, I mean, based on tryouts. Now there's some kids that come and go based on skill level, but for the most part, the team stays consistently the same. Our 2008, who was in this mix year, the team looked entirely different the next year because he was like one of 2 or 3 kids that were 2008s, and then all the rest, it was the year before it would have been the 2007s, and the next year he would have the 2009. So the whole roster got completely shaken up year after year, and finally he settled into a more consistent once he got into, like, high school ages. Now, I know we've talked about this, I think even way back on episode 1. There is an opportunity for kids to play up a level. I don't know what the rules are behind that. I think USA Hockey allows it. Maybe it's up to your league, it's up to your coach. What's your take on that?
One thing I want to say about the single birth year team, I think it gives more consistency year over year for your child to play with the same group of kids and really start developing that team play.
And I apologize for jumping ahead, but that single year team, when it for example, when your kid jumps from Squirts to Pee-wee, they're gonna be on the younger end of teams in any tournaments or games they possibly play. There's gonna be older kids they play. They're gonna get their butts kicked on occasion because kids are older and have been peewees a year longer. But that next year, and when they're the older kids, they've solidified and gotten much better, and now they're the dominant team. So it's a little bit of a growth period if you're going just a strictly year team, but playing in a peewee where there's kids that are a year older, but it's worth it. It's worth it as far as skill level.
I think that leads us it well into the advantages and some of the other things about playing up. So it's essentially so our 2014 this year, he's got a couple of kids on the team that are actually 2015s that are playing up. It's allowed if the obviously if the league allows it, if your rink, your association allows it. they are allowed to play up a level, whether it's a birth year level or it's one of these U10, U12 groups that we've talked about. That is allowed. I think one of the advantages of that is that when you're playing against kids that are older than you, it pushes you to be a little bit stronger, be a little bit faster, all of those things. It's a little bit of a push. It's not for everybody. I wouldn't suggest playing up just because, but I think if there are kids that are on the skill level of that group, then it makes sense. I would never look at an advantage of skipping up more than 1 year. I think if you had an 8-year-old and you wanted to put them on a 12U team, that would be a little out of character because of size, because that's, I think, what you were getting into talking about, with you're kind of on that first year of that 2-year band. Those kids are going to be playing against kids that are a year older. Some of those kids have hit puberty, they've grown more, they have another year of experience, and that's where you see a little bit more of a disadvantage. But I think in the long run, it's an advantage because the kids have the ability to play against those bigger, stronger, faster kids. You see how that plays out, and they actually learn a lot from that situation.
It's wild what a year difference can make in regards to puberty. I mean, our 12U plays and he plays with kids. You see that they're super tall, and I'm pretty sure they might have shaved their mustache before they got on the ice, or they drove themselves to the rink because these kids look big, where our 12U is on the smaller side. There's also the opportunity, and we experienced it with our 2008 of he double rostered, so he was a squirt and he was playing up for the Pee-wee team. Now, in retrospect, and maybe not retrospect because I was well aware of it back then, but he would play upwards of like 4 to 5 games a day, and he was gassed. I mean, I don't know what we were thinking. We loved hockey. He loved playing. He always said to him, "If you don't want to do this, please let us know." But what 9 or 10 year olds are going to say? No, I don't play hockey. I can remember driving between cities to play in 4 different games, and in retrospect, would I do that again? I'm not so sure I would because of the I don't know if the damage to the body, but of just wearing him out and the fear that he would get injured.
Well, I think we were lucky in that situation that he wasn't always playing on 2 different teams every weekend. It was only a handful of weekends out of the season that actually happened where he was playing for both teams. It was kind of a situation where that older team needed a couple of extra players, so he was asked to play when he was available. And I think in the long run, it was good for him because he was able to play with that older group. He was able to play on the ice with some more experienced kids, and shortly after that is when he moved to a different association where he could be on that birth year team. And I think it actually served him well to do that a few times. And let me tell you, that kid to this day, he doesn't want to be anywhere else other than on the ice.
That's true. I think he's already blown through his open stick pass that we got him for Christmas. He had 10 passes and he's already burned through them, and it's only January. We're a month removed from Christmas, so yeah, he'll take any ice time he can get. All right, we're gonna tear it down between so we talked about the levels of the mites and the squirts and the peewees, but there's levels within levels. So let's talk about that. So your kid's a mite, your kid's a squirt, your kid's a peewee. That doesn't mean that's what the team is. It's a squirt, but it has a sub level. Angela, let's talk about that.
What we've talked about so far is the levels based on age and birth year. We've talked a lot about birth year, talked a lot about age. So within that band, so within that 2-year band of a squirt or a peewee or a 14U or whatever you want to call them, there are different levels based on the skill level of the team as a whole. So just kind of start out, we have house teams and travel teams. So house teams are typically your rec teams. There are kids who are often just learning to play or just want to play recreationally. A lot of times they're playing within the rink. They're not going to any other rinks to play. They're just playing amongst teams that are based out of one or maybe two rinks.
Now these are the kids that are also probably coming fresh out of learn to skate as well. So they're coming out learn to skate. They don't want to play hockey. They're not ready to be put on a travel team, or the coaches don't know their skill level at that point. So the house team is kind of the answer to that question, regardless of age.
Right, and I think it's also kids that maybe aren't focused solely on hockey, they're playing other sports, and they wanna just play for fun, and that's great, and I think it's amazing, and it's a fun way for kids to get exercise and to kind of broaden their horizon when it comes to sports. So that's typically what a house team is gonna be. It's often referred to as a rec team or a B team. And then we have travel teams. Travel teams, obviously, most of them are going to travel, whether they're traveling within your own city based on how many other teams are in your local city, or they're traveling regionally. We've mentioned many times our kids travel regionally because there's just not that many teams in our local southern Ohio, northern Kentucky, southern Indiana area. So the travel teams are also broken up by their level of play.
We're on a level, a sub-level, and another sub-level. So we go yeah. So now we're
Right.
drilling down further. So now you're getting into the A teams, the BA Barrage,
Right.
the Space, Murdoch. I'm doing another '80s reference, the A teams. So go ahead with A, the double A, the triple A.
Right. So there's the A level A, double A, and triple A. So the A group is kind of the kids who are just starting out playing travel hockey. It's still really competitive. Often, this is one of the larger groups. It's sometimes referred to as Tier 3 hockey, which is that entry level into travel hockey. And I know for us, some of those A or Tier 3 leagues were broken up even further into a gold, silver, or bronze, or red, white, and blue to kind of even drill it down even further based on skill level. And the idea with this is that you want kids and teams playing teams with kids who have similar skill levels. You don't want the kids who are skating circles around other kids. So this is the league's way of breaking things down so that games are competitive, games are fun, and you don't have the one poor team that's getting blown out every single time, or the one team who just skates circles around everybody.
This is just like those Russian dolls we keep pulling off the cap, and there's another Russian doll in there. It's just layers. But also, all of that is also dependent, and we've seen it. It's dependent on how many kids are coming out to play hockey. So if your league has a shortage of kids, you're probably only getting one or two teams, and depending on their skill level, will be A, double A, triple A. And then within that, if you have a ton of kids, they're gonna let all the kids play hockey because everybody deserves to play hockey and everybody deserves to pay to play hockey. So they're gonna divvy out the teams. And we experienced that with our oldest when he first started playing. We had the red, white, and blue teams. I don't remember. Red might have been the worst team. I don't want to say worst. Red might have been the lower level team, whereas blue or white was like the upper tier team.
Right, and it's all based on skill level, and the idea is that you have, equal skill level kids playing on teams so that they can learn to play together, but also they're playing teams their opponent is a similar skill level. So that makes it more of a learning environment and not just a, "Hey, we're all out here to win or, beat the crap out of the other team every time."
And so the next categories, which to me are, I don't want to say equal, but they're leaps above A, when you're getting into the double A and the triple A. Now, for everybody just to let you know, our 12U currently plays double A. He plays for a double A team out of Cincinnati. And those double A teams kind of straddle that line sometimes and they'll swing hard and go for a triple A tournament. And we've done that before too. So do you want to kind of break that down between the double A and triple A? And what you really think the differences are skill-wise?
Right. So the double A and triple A, both of those levels are going to be much more competitive. Spots on those teams are going to be much more competitive. We've found, at least in our area, that most of the teams at those levels are going to be birth year teams because they want to keep a core group of kids together so that they have that year after year learning together. The double A team is also considered tier 2. It's becoming a much more competitive level of hockey. It's where you start traveling a little bit further, whereas the A level teams, you're traveling regionally, maybe an hour or two away, whereas the double A and triple A teams are traveling further away, 4, 5, 6 hours. And I would think some of the triple A teams are the ones that are getting on planes and traveling cross country so that they can play other kids of their skill level.
I'll say this, check your AAA team, and I think you're probably gonna go into this. Check your AAA team because AAA teams can be expensive, but it doesn't mean they're worth it. And we've experienced, and I'm not gonna point out or call out any teams, but we've had our son travel for AAA teams and make it, and we've chosen to play on the AA team, and we've actually played that AAA team that he would have made and beaten them. So AAA is kind of towing that line between skill versus can mom and dad afford to pay for AAA? Again, in my opinion. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I think that's definitely the case in our region. There are a handful of AAA teams in our region. Most of them are trying to gather up all of the kids in the region and get them on one team. We have experienced that the AA competitiveness is pretty close to what we can find here regionally. AAA, obviously, up in New England, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, even out west, there are a lot of really high level, high skilled AAA teams, but for us, the AA is still a very competitive program. AAA typically, I think the idea of it is that's going to it's a tier one program, is what they call it, and it feeds into juniors, which again, that's a whole nother topic. But I think you're right. There's a lot of people who are out there looking for that AAA team. It's a status symbol for some people that they want their kid to play on a AAA team, or maybe the kid wants to play on a AAA team as more of a status symbol. But I think we're going to get into this in a little bit about what hockey's about and kind of what your child's future is in hockey and how expensive it is. So I think there's opportunity for anybody to land on any team, but you need to look at what you're in for, not only money wise, travel wise, and what skill level your child's going to compete at.
When I think of AAA teams, I think of the bad team on Mighty. We're back to a Mighty Ducks reference. They had all the gear, the jumpsuits, and the bags, and the matching sticks. But yeah, I know each AAA is their own power. Now, as far as tournaments I've seen, a lot on social media where people get angry when those AAA teams go and play in a AA tournament and blow everybody out. That does happen. It occurs. I don't know why they would ever want to punch down. You don't want to punch down. It's not worth it. But there is cases. Again, we've cited our own where a AA team will play in a AAA tournament just to see how we fare. So we may be the punching bag, but we're going up against the skilled kids. The tournaments can be intermixed between the AA and the AAA teams.
Well, and I think that's one of those things you have to, as a coach and the team manager and the tournament director, I think they're the ones that need to really analyze the skill level of their team to determine where they need to be playing in a tournament. I know there have been times that our teams have been asked to play up or play down because there are not enough teams to fill a certain slot at a tournament. So that happens too. I don't, at least I hope people are not doing that maliciously, saying, "Hey, I've got this really great team, but I'm going to go play in a lower level in the tournament just to win." To me, that's pretty disgusting, especially for children. That's not appropriate. But I think you also need to look at kind of the background and the logistics behind it as well. And maybe this is a situation where they signed up for the tournament and there's no other teams in their division, so they just get plopped into some other division.
So general consensus there is, and that's what has been online, and exactly what you said is, it should be up to the coaches and the tournament heads to determine who gets to play in their tournament. And if a AAA team is playing a AA league or tournament, that's on the tournament itself. It's not on the team. If the team is allowed in the door, it's not their fault that someone opened the door for them. It's more on the tournament and the coaches to do that. Speak
Right, and as a I was gonna say, as a parent, if that continued to happen consistently with my kids' team, I would definitely be talking to the coach and to the team manager about why are we signing up for these tournaments, or how is it determined what level our team is playing at. And I'll say that we have been involved in some leagues that do seeding tournaments at the beginning of the year to kinda get a feel for all of the different teams in a league to put them at appropriate competitive level.
to go back to talking about where your kid should play and what level they should play on, again, that should be up to the coaches as to what their skill level is and where they belong on a team. If we've been in scenarios where our son has played on like a house team or even like a single A team, and he's scoring, I don't know, 5 or 6 goals a game, they're not gonna learn anything that way. It's just not gonna happen if they're taking the puck, skating it all the way down, and shooting and scoring every single time. It's time for that kid to graduate to the next level. If your kid is happy at that level and they're playing, decently and not scoring 8 or 9 goals a game, that's probably a good, division for them to be in. So it's watching your kid's skill level and taking the advice of the coaches as to where your kids should be playing.
And that really leads me into my reflections for this week is, the idea of our kids playing hockey and, youth sports in general for me is the whole point is, are the kids having fun? Are they learning? Are they growing? Is more important than what level they play at. I mentioned earlier that some people are chasing that extra A. They're chasing the status symbol of a double A team or a triple A team or whatever. And to me, that's not as important as it is, what is my kid getting out of this? Are they developing as a person? Are they developing as a human? Are they learning leadership skills? Are they learning teamwork? All of those kinds of things are much more important to me than how many A's are behind the team name. Because let's face it, of the 500,000 plus kids who are playing ice hockey today, there is a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of them who are going to be drafted into the NHL or even get an NCAA scholarship. I mean, the percentages are tiny, especially with the NCAA rule changes, which guess what? That's another episode. Mark that one.
Yeah, open the flood
Um,
doors to Canada players.
right. So my reflections are I think we have stumbled through this, but I think at the same time, keeping in mind that the idea of this is that our kids are learning and growing and having fun while competing is what we're in this for.
I agree. You're seeing life lessons learned. You're getting exercise. You're meeting new people. You're traveling parts of the country that you normally wouldn't be to. That's what it's all about for these kids. And you threw out a stat about NHL players. I mean, we've seen it time and time again at rinks. These parents think their kids are destined for the NHL. The remote possibility of that happen is minimum. And if you're listening in Kentucky, I've got a stat for you. Angela, how many people born in Kentucky have ever played in the NHL?
It's either 0 or 1.
It is 0. There's not
Okay.
been an NHL player come out of Kentucky, so clearly the possibility is always there. It's always possible, but the stats don't look good.
I think I read a statistic that there's somewhere between like 50 and 60 US born players drafted into the NHL every year. So if you think of the 500,000 plus kids who are playing ice hockey, that's like, 1%.
It's a little more possibility to play for NCAA hockey and to play college hockey, and we'll get into that, but for now, Angela, give us your tip of the week.
I think just what we've been talking about, the tip of the week is enjoy your kids' love of the game. Get to know the other players and parents and know that your kid is gaining important life skills by playing hockey. It's not about the scholarship, it's not about going pro. It's about confidence, leadership, resilience, discipline, communication, all of that.
I agree, and with that said, Angela, let's talk about our outro. Give it to us.
I appreciate everyone listening. Please follow, subscribe, share, leave us comments and questions on whatever platform you're listening on. Rating is really important. Get us out there so we can talk to some more hockey families.
Great, and I agree, so with that said, watch your kids, listen to your coaches, put them at a level they belong at, and keep your stick on the ice. We are all in this together. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. 10 episodes deep.
Up before dawn, can't feel my face. Coffee spilling all over the place. Forgot the sticks, we're turning around. Another weekend in some hockey.